Okay, last time we were looking at this housing here, I was just epoxying up the corner and the holes there. Now it's been a week since I've had a chance to work on it, so I'm back. I've been to the bearing shop and bought new seals for it, and I've taken all the old bearings out of the old housing, or well, all of the good bearings out of the old housing that Grumpy Dave put in. So there's the old housing. So the bearings are out of there, they're all in good nick, and I've popped them into the new housing here, so, or the housing we're going to use. So I've cleaned up the seal surfaces, they're pretty good. I've dropped the bearings in the bottom there, so I suppose what we have to do now is work out, I'll pop a bit of oil on here, is work out if we have end float on the shaft or what we have. That feels nicer. So on this shaft, with the bearings facing away from each other, as this shaft heats up, this shaft would expand. That's just how mechanical work, heat expands things. So to set these bearings up, what I would be looking at having is 0 to 2 thou end float. So when it expands a bit, it can tighten up, but probably around the 0 end. We don't want pre-load really. We've only got like an alloy housing with the preload on it, so we'll just have to see how we go. Now, if we sit this on with no gasket, and give this a bit of a turn, and you can see it. You can see it rocking on the bearing there. So there's no movement there at all. And if you can remember back when Grumpy Dave had this together, he didn't have a gasket in here. He just used silicone, like blue, ultra blue. So that there, I'll just try and get that even. Now, to work out how thick our gasket should be, if we put feeler gauges in here, 1, 2, 3, 4, put them in separately, and take an average, that should tell us that we'll need some 0.8mm or some 0.4mm gasket paper here, and that'll get us pretty close. So I'll go and find the feeler gauges and we'll hop into that. I've got a feeler gauge here. I think this is 26 thou. This is an old set of feeler gauges. It could be a bit nicer, but anyway. Okay, it's a bit loose there. Not too bad there. A little loose there. A little loose there. Okay. So let's go fatter. Let's go to the fattest one in the pack, which is usually 30 thou, I think. These are that older, flat reading them, but I can measure them. Okay. That's just touching. That's just touching. Doesn't go in there. Does go in there. So if I try and even this up a bit, they're very close there. Okay, so you can see how the story goes here. Let's find just too tight. Just too tight. Goes in there. Goes in there. So I wonder, is this housing out of whack a little bit? So I've got some verniers here so I can measure what I have. These ones here do the job. So we're looking at 1 mil. Yep, that's 1 millimetre. So we'll just go a little thicker. Because the gasket paper will compress a little. Okay, oh, that's firm. That doesn't quite go in. That doesn't quite. And that doesn't quite. So if we measure this, what have we got? 1.2 mil. Okay, I've got some 0.4 gasket paper. So if I make 3.4s, that gets me around the 1.2 mil that I think I need. So we'll just run through cutting one gasket, then I'll do the others off camera sort of thing. So look, we just lay that flat there, feel around for the hole. There's a hole just there. There's a hole, another one there. Another one here. And that's all still in place. Another one there. So now we know where those little pieces are. We can pop these out. Get that little bit of rubbish out. Pop a couple of bolts in just to stop it moving. I'll go in there. Well, that's one of Dave's metric bolts. I should have chucked that in the bin. And probably, oh, that's metric too, I think. Metric. Okay, and now look, while holding that down, just feel for the edge here. And you can see the mark forming there. That tells us where the inside is. And On the outside here, same thing. Now, on the inside I like to get it perfect now. On the outside I don't worry much, because later on I like to put the housing on and run a Stanley blade or a sharp blade around. And when you're painting tractors then, you haven't got a little bit of gasket sticking out the side there. So. But that's getting pretty close. Alright, we'll pop that out. Once we've made one, it's as simple as tracing it onto that one, just the shape. And I think that's the quickest way. Oh, well, that's my story and I'm sticking to it. Always do the holes first, because I've seen people go to the trouble of cutting gaskets out and then use a wad punch here and blow the side out of the gasket. So probably don't do that. Doing the gaskets on the outside like that, you always get a slightly jagged edge. But like I say, later on I run around with a Stanley knife anyway and tidy things up. I'll just come in here, join the dots, and see there's a chamfer here, so it's not a real sharp edge inside there. Okay, so like I say, a bit rough around the edges, but I don't care about that. Now this should be able to sit on there nice and easily. Yep, look at that. Okay, so if I find a clean bit of bench, sit this on there, mark it out. I should be able to cut around, get the wad punch, do the holes, and yeah, nice and easy. It doesn't take long really. Okay, you can see I've got the box up in the vise and I've got another gasket there. I had to cut 4 gaskets and I've put the shaft in, rotated it a dozen times, bashed it back and forth and tried to make sure everything was seated home. We're sitting on 0 there. 3 to 1.5. Minus 3.5. Minus 1.5. Now the trouble with this housing is if I turn it a bit, you can actually get, you know, it's a slightly rough. I've tried to find a nice even piece here. So it looks like our end play is 1.5 to 3.5. So look, we're pretty well on our 2 thou that we were looking for. And that was with 3 gaskets. You can notice I've got another gasket there. I just cut the inside and did the bolts. I'll run around. So I'm happy now that's a 2 thou end plate. You can see, like if that had preload on it, you wouldn't be turning it and it wouldn't be keeping running on like that. So that's okay. I'm not going to put the ceiling till last. I'll try and get this other shaft set up. Now I've had this other shaft up on the lathe and I tidied up where it had all sharp edges, and I tried to, there was a bit of galling there. I tried to polish the seal surface best I could. So I do have to put the seal on that shaft because the seal actually sits behind the bearing like on a wheel bearing. So I'll have to put the bearing in, put the seal in, and then bring the shaft in through here, and we'll try and set up the preload how we think we need it, and then we'll put it together and we'll see what sort of backlash we can find. Okay, I've sat the bearing in here and I've put the seal in, and so this output shaft he should be able to go and sit in there. So I'll pop a bit of grease, a bit of LSA into where the seal runs here, and I've put the crown wheel or the drive gear here. I've put it in because once we get this shaft in, if we need to pull it right back out to clear the shaft, for the shaft to clear the gear, to get it back out, well, we're going to damage this seal. So this is the way I've chosen to do it. This is the way I think it should work for us. So let's have a go. So if we bring this down in through here, that wasn't really what was meant to happen, Lance, but anyway. Okay, so it's in there. It's gone through the first bearing. So now we need to pop this other bearing in. And I'll pop a bit of oil around there. So we can put the bearing in, and at this point we need to put this gear on. So if I can lift that up enough to get it to mesh properly. There we go. So it's a bit of a fiddly old setup. So that bearing's sitting correctly. That's engaging in the gear, hopefully soon. Now it only had a washer and a castellated nut. I might try and feed them on as we go. This shaft here with the bearing spacing that way, you can have zero end float in this and just a little bit of preload, because as it heats it'll expand and loosen, where as this one expands it tightens. So that's why I'm looking for all the rollers turning. And I'm pretty happy with that. I'll just give it a blow so I can see. Just so I can see the rollers actually are turning. Yep, they are. I can see. I'll probably zoom you in there, you'll disappear. You won't be able to see what I'm looking at, I don't think. You can just see the rollers sitting at the top there, and we've got to make sure that every roller is turning to know that we have preload on this shaft a little bit. Now I suppose another thing to do would be, we'll just give this a bit of a smack. And that's just to make sure everything's seated correctly. Do we still have full contact? Yes, we do. Okay, I think we'll call that right now. If I can find where that bloody split pin went. All nice. Alright, we'll grab a split pin and put in there, I think. I'm pretty happy with how all that is. I'm pretty happy that we can't go any tighter. Or the washer's tight. We'll Alright, so that's okay. I don't think we can get it much better than that. We'll get this end cap. I'm not going to put anything on the gasket. I don't really feel I need to. Down that way like that. When I set it up, I kept this groove down there. In. Okay. Actually, since that bearing gone on, that feels a lot nicer. Make sure the bearings are home. There's bugger all backlash here. I wouldn't mind seeing a bit more, but I can't actually. No, there's some there. I just feel a little bit there. Okay, we're happy with that. We'll pop this seal in. Bit of grease around the seal surface. Now, how am I going to get that on without buggering it, Lance? Slow and steady. Oh, feels lovely. Okay. Just a little notch there, I reckon, somewhere. Okay, we're going to call that done for that gearbox. Now, before I paint it, I'll pop a brass bung in here so I don't get any rubbish in there. And I will give it a good white pan and a good paint with just a bit of stony grey or something like that. Whatever I've got tucked away. We're not going to get too worried about it. Okay, and next time you see this, it'll have the pulley on it, which is just 4 bolts, no need for that. I'll paint it first. I'll wipe this all down with thinners, I'll tidy it all up. That's feeling good. I'm hoping it feels good the other way too, but we'll get a bit of oil in. And next time you see it, it will probably either be painted, sitting here painted, or you can see where I put that seal in. It'll be painted, or it'll be on the back of the TEA. Alright, thanks for that. Let's move on to something else.